Hey, pool chasers. Today we have a very special episode for you. The grandfather of our guest started their company all the way back in the mid 1960s when he built his first pool using a book as his guideline. Think about that for a second. There was no design software, computers, or even internet back then to help him out. It's pretty impressive, right? Well, those 50 plus years of knowledge and experience has been passed down through generations to our guest today. Lee talks with us all about that history, as well as his experience becoming an owner, what it is like being in a multi-generational family business, and several things he has implemented to make the business what it is today. We also discuss what it is like building pools as well as servicing them in Louisiana, and much more. Ever since we first met him, we've wanted to have him on because it is such an incredible story, and we can't wait for you all to hear it. So please enjoy episode 119 with Lee Russell of Russell Pool Company.
Welcome to your go-to podcast for the pool and spa industry. My name is Tyler Rasmussen.
And my name is Greg Villafania. And this is the Pool Chasers Podcast.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys coming down all the way from Louisiana. It's
Man, I appreciate y'all having us out because, you know, when you reached out, I really didn't want to phone it in. I wanted to be able to be in person, be more, I don't know, more real with it, I guess, in some ways. Mm-hmm. But we haven't traveled since February, and we needed to get away. And so it was perfect opportunity
Yeah.
to get out. And so we made the most of it, spent some time traveling around. We went and saw Paramount yesterday. We've been a dealer for them for right at 20 years. So to go see their building, of course, I think they're moving pretty soon, but to see their process and talk with some of the leadership there was really cool.
Yeah, how is it over there? They manufacture everything over there?
Yeah. So they've got a bunch of parts, and they've got crews that just punch everything together and test it all before it goes out and package it up and send it. And so whenever you get an order, they make it to order. So they don't have a whole lot of whole goods on the shelf. It's just parts, and the whole goods come out after you order the main drains or the heads or collars, whatever. Pretty neat.
Yeah. So I'm assuming they haven't had too many issues with some of the logistic issues that have been going on since COVID and everything else going on. Have you had any issues in Louisiana getting parts from them?
Not from them. They've been pretty quick to get us whatever we've needed.
I mean, you are Russell Pool, so
yeah. Whatever. No, you could tell with every company they were probably short-staffed at some points because, I mean, a couple of times things have been missing out of a box that should have been in a box. But, I mean, when you've got people putting things together, some things happen like that. No big deal. They make it right and get us the parts that we need, you know, next day air or whatever. That's what I want of my vendors. I want them to take care of us like that. So
super cool to be so understanding, or some might be really impatient with that kind of thing, but you understand that, hey, make mistakes, but you know, as long as you can fix it.
I know. I wish my customers were like that.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
Yeah, I wish all my clients were that understanding. But yeah, I mean, we're all human. We all make mistakes. My guys do too. I mean, when we're building a pool, it's not going to be perfect every single time. There's no way for it to be because not a single one of my crew is perfect, you know. And I need to tell folks if they want a perfect pool, get you a fiberglass that's dropped in. But even then, that's going to have some sort of issue because a guy's still putting it in a hole. I mean, it doesn't just, you know, get there on its own.
I do feel like with a concrete pool, some of the little imperfection give it some of the character that it has.
Oh, absolutely.
From afar, a pool does look perfect, I guess you'd say.
Right.
But some of those imperfections is kind of the art of it. Like if somebody were sculpting something or making people that sculpt pottery and stuff like that, like that stuff is worth so much because it's handmade and you're not going to get the same thing every single time. There's going to be a little difference every time that you do it.
Well, I mean, I think a great example of that is the spa overflow on a raised spa that's going into it. Everybody wants that to be a perfectly seamless water flow coming out like a waterfall. And you're never going to achieve that. No matter what you put, you're going to get some sort of drip. And that's some of the character. I mean, I can look at any picture of one and tell where the water's been hitting on it. They may have gotten the green and the white off of it, but it's been wet. But that's the character of the pool. Yeah. And that's character of water. It's going to go where it wants to go, do what it wants to do. It's frustrating that people expect it to be perfect. And it is a piece of art that's being created by hands of men. You know, sometimes it is what it is.
Well, you do your best, and
I mean,
hopefully it's not off by too much.
I have yet
son-
I've yet to find a stone bender that will flex stone around corners or over humps and things like that. So, I can only do so much with what we're given sometimes.
Yeah, and stone's got to be a rough one.
It's tough. Yeah, if you get your elevations wrong, you're tearing up concrete to fix it.
Do you do a lot of stonework in Louisiana?
We do a lot.
Yeah. I notice a lot of like red brick you guys are doing too. I think that's really cool, but you don't see too much of that. I've probably seen one pool here in Arizona that had some red brick.
I don't know if it's more readily available where we're at, but I mean, the red brick is kind of a Louisiana statement of architecture in many ways. Right. I mean, most of our houses are red brick, old St. Louis, old Birminghams, things like that, some St. Joe's. But yeah, I mean, back in the 90s, 80s, and 90s, man, just about every pool had brick on it. So we would use real brick. We wouldn't use a bullnose brick or anything like that. It's brick off of a building out of old St. Louis. It adds a lot of character to a pool, I'll tell you that.
Most definitely.
When you've got a wall that's got black in it from the
burn marks?
The burn marks from being in a furnace somewhere and mixed in with one that's white or blue or green. I mean, that's really cool. You can't replicate that.
That's why I like the old, some are new, but the like the brick oven, like the brick oven for the pizzas.
Yeah.
But just kind of that natural burn marks and just the way that the patina that puts on those bricks over time just looks really cool.
Well, a big trend now is painting brick in Baton Rouge. So everybody's got a brick house that's painted white. Crushes my heart because a lot of them are old brick that you can't get anymore. I don't want to say anything bad about my parents, but they built a brand new house, used old brick, and they could have used a new brick just as well. But
I was gonna say, why use the old brick?
I don't know.
How does brick do by a pool?
It depends on the brick. We have to actually, especially with St. Louis, we kind of cull through it. If it's orange and soft, it will not do any good. Old St. Louis Old Chicago's are difficult. They're a pink and a yellow brick, and they're known for being softer. And so around water, it's gonna crumble over time. If you get a freeze, it's gone.
How do you test something like that? You're saying it's soft. How do you know if it's soft or?
Well, some of it's just our experience. I mean, you can tell from a hard brick because the surface, you can almost scratch it and it not flake up anyway. The orange bricks, you could put your knife to them and just scratch them up. They'll fall apart.
Yeah, because I imagine if that flakes off into the pool, it's going to do some damage to the interior.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have red down there. And we actually had a client, he insisted on all oranges. And we told him what's going to happen. And within about 2 years, we were taking them up and putting something else down. They just disintegrated.
And you pay for it again?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
he was warned.
There's no warranty on that.
I hate to say I told you so, but
we can't warranty stone and brick.
I think it's just too hot here. I mean, if some of the older pools, you'll see have that brick around it, but if you put that brick in 120 degree,
it don't matter, man. There ain't nothing you can do here to get away from that heat. There's nothing. Cook some eggs on that brick. Who cares? Make the best of it.
We don't do near as much brick as we used to. We've been doing a lot of travertine and white quartzite over the last couple of years. Probably majority of our pools have been that, to be honest with you. I like the travertine and quartzites. They're a little bit cooler to the touch, especially when you compare to a flagstone from Pennsylvania,
right?
Which is like walking on a skillet in the summer. It's hot.
Yeah, flagstone's worse.
Oh, it is. It is the most miserable surface to walk on in the summer.
We're going to get into the history of everything, but have you seen changes in trends of what people want their pool to look like?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I hate Houzz. I hate Pinterest.
Really? You think that would help?
And it does not. It does. I mean, it's got some benefit. Don't get me wrong, but you have to kind of build to what your crews are capable of building. And if you don't have the talent to do an all glass tile pool, don't sell an all glass tile pool, because that's going to be a maintenance nightmare, because the crews that you're putting in to do it, they're not going to do it right. And, unless you can afford a Jimmy Reed or Ray Coral, some of those guys to come do your work. I mean, don't just do it just to do it, just to be like everybody else. And so that's kind of, one of the things we look for when we're doing our pools is we do things that we know are going to be functional. We're not going to put a wall in a way that makes it dangerous, or, You have to walk around. We're not going to put the spa 200 yards away from the back door. We're going to try to do things that make it user-friendly, make it usable, functional, and it's something that I know my subs can build. I don't want to give my subs something that's difficult that they can't do. Everybody becomes frustrated. Homeowner becomes frustrated when it doesn't look like the picture off of Pinterest that they got. And in the end, nobody's really happy with the end product for the most part. So
it's like they got to understand too. A lot of that is editing.
Yeah.
Take a picture of their pool and be like, look, I'm going to do a couple of adjustments. Look, identical.
Exactly. Yeah. We put a filter on it. I can make it.
There you go.
Stand far enough away. I can get a good, but yeah, some of the things we try to keep in mind when we design and when we build our pools. What's the best for the customer? Most customers don't really know what's best for them when they're looking at a pool. They think they want all of these bells and whistles. They want this. They want a hot tub. And the reality is, yeah, they may want it, but they may not ever use it. And if you don't have the money for it, you're not going to use it, why put it in? Let's spend your money on something that does benefit you. Let's make your pool a little bit bigger, or let's put a different material down that adds value to you. But don't just do something because that's what everybody else is doing, or that's what the neighbor did down the street. That's bad. Right. It's a bad reason to do something.
So do you guys stay away from glass tile?
No, we still put on. We don't do glass. We've done a full glass tile pool years ago, but we do it on the water line.
Full.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
An all tile pool. We stay away from that.
That's completely different. Yeah.
That's a completely different ball game. Yeah. When I've had folks ask, and when I quote what it's going to cost to get somebody in to do it, that's.
Ain't that nice?
No, I don't like it that much. Let's just do it on the water line.
One of those where they're like, I don't care how much it costs.
Oh, it costs that much. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? Show me that other one you were showing me.
Exactly.
Yeah, plaster's good.
No, but we do glass tile, Oceanside and Island Stone are the two that we mostly use. We don't do it often. Again, it's a little more expensive material. But if a client wants it, we'll do it. We do have guys that can do waterline. I would not trust them to do an entire pool.
Yeah. You see people in your area that are buying pools right now being younger?
Not really. We're still our clientele is still upper 40s to 60. And maybe some even older than that. Some of those retirees who have just a lot of money that, they're moved to another house and they want to bring their pool with them. So,
and they're showing you stuff off of Pinterest and House and all that.
Some of them are. I guess their kids are showing them what to look for. Of course, a lot of folks, if you're that stage in your life, you've got an interior designer that's helping you with a lot of stuff, especially on the higher end jobs. They're going to have somebody who's telling them, hey, this looks good. Let's consider these materials. And it's not necessarily coming from us. So.
Yeah. I would still think it's a good thing. It's just a matter of the salesperson, the designer, you as the owner, just explaining to them that we can get something close to this, but these are some of the problems you're going to face.
Well, you have to temper expectations on that. Because some of those pictures out there are done by some world-class artisans that, hey man, I love my guys in Louisiana, but they're not them. So,
yeah. And you're in Louisiana, you're not in Arizona or Los Angeles or a place that a lot of these like Ocean Glass Tile, like they're based out of California. Right. So it's going to be easier to maybe get a team educated on how to install it.
Exactly.
And all those different things.
Yeah. So. I've tried to get my plaster crew to go to classes with Diamond Bright and all these different ones, and they won't do it because it's too far for them to go. They'd rather go work doing the quality they're doing now. Somebody's going to pay them to do what they're doing now. Why go get any better just for me? So it's a struggle for sure. Yeah. I don't think that's just unique to me though. I think that's industry wide, to be honest with you.
Very good.
Yeah, I would think that would be for sure.
Yeah.
A problem all over.
People do not really want to take the time to learn, to be honest with you. Yeah. They're fine where they're at. And if somebody's paying them where they're at, it's not an incentive to get better.
Well, it's really difficult for everybody to be patient these days.
That's true.
It's getting harder for that. I noticed yesterday I took my daughter to the doctor. She was having some pain in her mouth. And I just noticed every time we go, she gets more impatient. Like, when's the doctor going to be in here? Like, we were in there for like 5 minutes or
Yeah.
something. I'm like, babe, like, we just got to wait. It takes a little bit. They're helping some other people. We don't want the doctor to rush us
Right.
when they're in here. It's like, yeah, when is she going to be in here? I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea. When we get out of here, you're just going home. You don't have shit to do. I got to go back. I need to get to work. I'm the one that should be asking when they're going to come in here. But it's just, in the digital age with social media and, all this instant gratification going on,
Right.
that it's hard to be like, here's this book and here's these classes. It's going to take X amount of hours. Here's a location you need to be at to get trained on this thing. It's like, yeah, man, I really need this to look like this, like tomorrow. So how do we expedite that? Can you just come to the job site and do it, and then we'll figure it out after that? Yeah, it's definitely getting more difficult for that.
No doubt.
Yeah. So, I mean, from our previous conversations, we know, your company has a lot of history, and we want to dive kind of into that.
Sure.
So can you go way back to the beginning and kind of share the Russell Pool story and how it started?
Yeah, absolutely. So my grandparents, it was Roy and Betty Russell. They started their Russell Pool Company in the mid 60s. And just we start with, let me give the cast of characters of who all was in the family, because I may reference somebody and just so everybody kind of knows who's who. My grandparents were Roy and Betty. They had 4 children. My dad, Tommy, was the oldest. And then he had a sister who she was never in the pool business. As long as I've known her, she was living out of state. So she was never really into any of this. And then he had 2 younger brothers, Daryl, and then his youngest brother is Keith. And so the 3 brothers were part of Russell Pool pretty early on as they aged up. And so my grandfather was a machinist at Exxon plant in Baton Rouge. I don't know when he started that, but he was working there, and he and one of his neighbors decided that they needed a pool in the neighborhood for their kids. It's back in the 60s, the baby boomers, a lot of kids running the streets, and if they had a pool in the backyard, they could kind of keep track of where everybody was. So in 64, they built their first pool. My grandfather said, hey, let's do this. They worked together. He built his, and then they went around the corner, built his, and then some folks kind of heard that they were doing that kind of work and started inquiring, and it kind of just started from there. And they were doing, a few pools here and there. In 65, they really kind of started focusing in on it. Now, my grandfather was still a machinist at Exxon, so he would work shift work, and then when he got done, he would go to a job. My dad started probably when he was 15, working after school with him in summers, start, kind of doing some of the grunt work and the field work for him. They would go out there and work all day, and my grandfather would show up at 4:30, 5 o'clock after his shift, and he'd be ready to go again, and they'd have to stay out there till dark working. That was kind of what they did.
And how did your grandfather even know how to get started? I mean, yeah, he was a machinist, but I mean, that doesn't necessarily qualify you to build a pool.
No, not at all. He was a very good person working with his hands. He could build anything from a pitcher or from whatever. And he actually, the story goes, he went and got a book to learn how to build pools. I still have the book. It's made by Jacuzzi Brothers. I don't know how much he used of it, how he used it. I still have it. But if you look through the book, it shows you different plans of different pools, different sizes, how to plumb them, how to do your steel schedules. And this was back in the 60s. I mean, you couldn't Google or YouTube how to build a pool. So, I mean, I can only assume he went to the library and found a book and kind of went from there.
Have you gone through that book, and do any of those pools look familiar? Like, yep, that's that pool. I remember that pool.
I have seen some of those in pool routes over the years, for sure.
That's hilarious.
We've replastered some of them over the years that he had built. And that's always cool to go back to those that he built. But he got out of building pools in the mid-'80s. My dad and uncle took over it then, and they were all in the construction. My grandparents started a service company, and so they were doing the service side of it. That's what they did through the 80s and 90s. So,
Do you know why that it was?
Why they split it up? I don't know. It could have been because it's hard to feed 3 families in a small business. That may have been part of it. Both my dad and uncle had small kids, young families. They were kind of gearing up for that. wanting to do more work, wanting to do more. I've never sat down and asked them, why did y'all buy Paw out? What was the story behind that? I just knew, it was kind of a transition there that occurred. I don't remember. Of course, I was young. I mean, I'd have been in the mid 80s. I was 5-6 years old, so it wouldn't have even occurred to me what was going on as far as business stuff. So
Sure. That's a interesting topic though, is they're building pools and then they switch to the service side. But yeah, you're probably right. It's probably they didn't want to keep pushing forward, grinding all that. I mean, service is a little bit easier as far as on your body, maybe.
And these were completely split. I mean, each one of these feeds another, where it's like, we build the pool, we're going to send you to Russell Pool's service division, but these were like separate entities.
They were separate entities
but they were both called Russell something or other?
One was Russell Pool Company, one was Russell Pool Service. They shared the same building. We still share the same building, but they still are two separate companies on the books. So back then, my dad and uncle owned the construction side, and my grandparents owned the service side. And that was probably until the late 90s, early 2000s, when they finally sold that to my dad and my uncle and hung it up.
Yeah. So. And when did you come into the picture? I mean, when did you first, step foot on a job site?
I remember the very first time I remember being on a job site was my very first day of kindergarten. The very first day I climbed up the monkey bars and jumped off the top of them and got a black eye, and they had to call. My mom was at home with my little sister. She couldn't leave. This was back in the day. You're sharing cars, and it wasn't like it was now. So my dad got a hold of him, and he had to come pick me up and took me to work with him. And I worked with him, rode around with him that day with this huge black eye and ice on it all day long. That's the first time I remember being on a job with him. Was 5 years old. Well, not 5, but at kindergarten. I'd been 5. But when I turned 12, that summer of being 12, my grandfather, he was out of the construction. He was just doing service. My grandmother was kind of running all that, and it was going pretty good. And he was doing a lot of replaster work, renovation work, some of the more technical and difficult service work. I mean, you guys know what I'm talking about. Not just going cleaning pools, but when you're troubleshooting. He was doing that, and he knew I needed to, he wanted me to learn. So he brought me out there 12 years old, paid me $75 a week to pretty much be his slave and his helper for that summer. I mean, I've rolled so many wheelbarrows of rock and concrete, and but that was when I first started. And then I worked every summer from then on out.
Did you enjoy it in the beginning?
Absolutely. Oh, it was so cool. I mean, that was a blast. I mean, to go out there and play, and to me, it was like playtime. Even at 12, it was going out and playing with the equipment and the tools, and hitting stuff, breaking stuff, demoing. I mean, that was fun. And I got to hang out with my grandfather. I rode with him in his pickup truck, and I still remember I had a sunburn on my right arm from hanging it out the window and riding around town with him.
Well, you guys were probably always talking about pools, right? Because I can imagine that your grandfather and your grandmother have the first pool that they ever built. So you guys are probably coming over for, barbecues and get-togethers, and you're swimming in the pool that they built. And you build pools now for a living, that it's probably just always the.
Yeah, there's always a conversation about a pool. I remember for one point they asked my grandparents to quit asking about pools. I mean, let's talk about something else that's going on in the family other than just how the pool business is doing.
This ain't no podcast. Let's stop talking about pools.
Yeah. And I love my dad, but that's how it is now with him. He's out of it entirely, and I'll call him and he'll ask about what projects he's working on, what's going on, how are things at the office, and is this so-and-so still working with you, or is this up still? So, I mean, it's hard to give it up. I understand that. That's all my dad did for 50 years. He never had a job interview. He started working at 15 and never stopped until he was 65. So,
whenever you decide to retire, you're going to be checking in, even with your friends, like,
I will be.
How are things going? You need me to come? You need me to come check it out, make sure you're doing it all right?
I'm sure I will be. It'll be difficult to give it up because, I've given most of my life to swimming pools for sure.
Right.
So, no doubt.
Well, I'm sure you each have brought your own kind of different things to the business? And what did your dad and uncle kind of do and change a little bit when transitioning from your grandfather?
So my dad, he only did maybe a semester of college, and he knew that wasn't for him. So he went straight back into building pools. My uncle did go to college, and he got a business degree. And in fact, I believe when he first came out, he actually went and sold insurance for a little bit. But my uncle is a natural salesman. I mean, he is probably the best salesman I've ever seen and been around. He can sell anything to anybody if he wants to. So the way they broke it up is my dad kind of did all the operations. He did all the work with the crews to the construction side, and then my uncle would do all the sales and some of the financial stuff with some of those business portions of it.
I've heard you talk about your uncle being a good salesman. What do you think made him so good? Because it's not about just, you think of a good salesman, you think of like kind of this sort of like con artist that'll say anything, but I think it's somebody that like really is just good with people.
He can read people really well. He's very relational. I mean, he can talk about anything. He's very well rounded. I mean, there's, I don't know. He's just got a charisma about him that people kind of draw to him, and it's amazing to watch. I mean, there's some customers that are pills, and he can walk over there and problem solved. Just by talking, he's able, communicating with them, he's able to resolve a lot of stuff, and it's great to have him behind us a lot of times, especially on the operations side. I mean,
it's crazy how some people just have that.
I know.
Where I could say the same exact thing they said, and I'll get a door slammed in my face, but they just have that swagger about them where they're like, "Come in, you want some cookies?"
It aggravates me to no end because he is saying the same thing I've said to him already when he gets there. We've already had the conversation, but he's able to say it in a different way. And I mean, I wish I had some of that. I don't. I'm not the salesman of our company. I don't know that I could sell a pool if I had to, but that's not where I get my enjoyment from. It's not me.
We all have our
niches.
roles, for sure.
So he was a salesman, and then my dad was
operations.
Oh, that's cool.
Sure enough. In fact, my dad dug our pools on a backhoe until early 2000s, I believe, is when he finally got off the backhoe. I'm trying to think the exact year that was. Yeah, it was early 2000s that he was still running the machine. So
Who's that? Must have loved that.
My dad.
Your dad? Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
He must have loved it.
He still has a backhoe. And
That's awesome.
He's retired. He's in a community that he couldn't even drive it in the streets. The streets are so tight. I think he keeps the backhoe at my sister's house and on her property. But yeah, he was moving recently, sold his house, and he had that backhoe moving stuff. And I was like, Dad, please don't.
I'm surprised when you needed to be picked up in kindergarten from that black eye, he didn't pick you up in a backhoe.
I'm telling you. And he was.
Lee, your dad's here.
I don't know if you guys have ever operated a backhoe, but it's not the easiest machine to operate. It's different than the joysticks that these guys have now. And that man could run that machine. I mean,
I have a little bit. Yeah, it's definitely
different.
I was playing with a backhoe and a ditch witch with my dad. He does heavy equipment.
Okay.
A while back ago, and it's definitely, especially if you've used like a forklift or drive a stick shift or something like that, it's just much different because you kind of already have like these old habits, and you get in there and it's like, oh, how does this do that? Oh, I just took out somebody's car. Whoops.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he kind of spoiled us in many ways because he was so good that I didn't have to worry about elevations. He could see them, and we would check behind him still, but we didn't have to go back. I mean, I've not had a dig crew since that could get my elevations just like he did, or cut the walls just as well as he did.
What brand of equipment do you remember you guys using back then?
We have always used case backhoes. When we had backhoes, it was a case that he had. Now we use Bobcats mostly.
Oh, got a case right there.
Yep.
A model case.
There it is.
Nice. Yeah, that's really impressive seeing people that just have that finesse with the heavy equipment, because they're doing things that I feel like aren't taught. But you need to like kind of wedge yourself into a certain area. And man, just seeing people even just putting the bucket on the ground and just kind of scooting themselves to get it. I'm like, is that really taught? That is a pretty slick move right there.
Yeah. My guy Chase that works for me, he's really good on a machine.
We all know Chase.
Really good at taking his shirt off too.
Yeah. If you've seen any of my Instagram, the big guy, that's not me. That's Chase.
Guy bench pressing cars
Yeah.
Chase on his lunch break.
We love you, Chase.
I'm not
Don't
sure.
hurt
I'm
me.
not sure he needs the machine to dig some of those holes.
Right?
Throw the shovel down once and explode out. No, but all in all honesty, I mean, Chase is a really good operator as well.
Yeah.
I don't have to watch him as much as I can just let him go. And that's one of the reasons we're so proficient is I've got him. He's so good on that machine and doing what he does. I'm coming right behind him and we can knock stuff out in no time.
For sure.
Digging is a different thing where you're at, right? I mean, you can run into a ton of issues with, such soft ground. You could hit pockets of water. I mean,
Absolutely.
Who knows what's going to happen?
Oh yeah, well we've had pools. We dug some that were 10 foot deep down in a southern part of Louisiana and Houma, and we couldn't keep the walls up. They were constantly caving in. So these pools that were supposed to be 20 by 40 ended up, after we dug them, close to 40 by 60, because we had to 45 the walls to keep the dirt from falling in, and that was a mess. That was tough.
So you have to angle it, and then you just kind of form the shape of the pool, and then you just backfill.
Yeah, on that particular job, we angled it back at a 45, and we had my gunite crew come in and flash the shotcrete on the walls just to kind of give it a hard crust.
Oh.
And then we came back in and drove our forms in, built the pool with the forms, shot it, and then once we ripped forms, we backfilled it back to grade. So that doesn't happen often, but still, I mean, we're near or below sea level in most spots of Louisiana. So when I dig a pool, I know I'm gonna hit water, and depending on what kind of dirt is around it, whether it's river silt or some sort of clay, depends on if that thing's gonna fall or not. So we constantly are fighting with that.
How about?
When my guys take out building equipment, our skimmers and all that kind of stuff that we're going to put in before we gunite, they bring a pump hose and a cord and a roll of visqueen on every job, because you never, you got to protect it. So
that's awesome.
In a tent?
We don't use. I have a small tent that I'll use when I hook up filters sometimes, or if we're doing some small work. But most of the time, it's just a roll of visqueen.
Maybe give people a little bit of a rundown of the conditions out there, because some people, might be from some of these other states that don't deal with a lot of the conditions like Louisiana.
Yeah, so it's very wet, a lot of water. I'm trying to think the best way to describe it's a lot of times when you dig, you get mud. If we're in a drought, sometimes because we have clay, it'll get very hard, but not so hard you got to get a breaker out or anything like that. I love those jobs because I have perfectly straight walls on those jobs. I don't have to worry about anything falling.
And how often does it rain out there?
About every 3 or 4 days, I get rain.
Oh, wow.
In fact, everybody talks about Seattle being really the wet and all the rain there. Baton Rouge gets more rain than Seattle does.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
We get more inches of rain per year than Seattle does. About every 3 or 4 days, we get a storm come in. We're just far enough off the Gulf that it has a chance to really build up and drop a ton of water on us. So,
boom, take that, Seattle.
yeah, I mean, I don't know if you guys remember, but 2016 we had that huge flood in Baton Rouge where, we've got places that had 6, 7, 8 foot of water in the houses. It was a pretty big deal. That was 2016 that flood occurred. But yeah, lots of water we deal with. We've learned how to dewater our pools. We know we have to put a hydrostatic valve underneath to keep the pressure off the tank. If you're draining a pool, we know you better drill a hole when you hit 3 foot and 4 foot and 5 foot, because otherwise that sucker's gonna become a boat and start floating out of your backyard. Yeah, the water's difficult. It does what it wants to do, for sure.
Yeah, you guys have had some of the biggest storms. What's probably the biggest one that's gone through there?
Probably the biggest storm that we've had that's done probably some of the most damage was the most recent one. Laura did a ton of damage over on the west part of the state, Lake Charles, near the state line. It had a ton of wind, a lot of wind damage from that one. Of course, everybody knows Katrina and the catastrophe it was and the devastation that it brought. But even Katrina, as far as storms go, wasn't that powerful of a storm when it hit Baton Rouge, or not hit Louisiana, hit New Orleans. It's just the way it hit the walls and the way the surge came over those walls that caused the flooding there. But yeah, so we're going to get a storm a year. We know that. We've had, I think, 4 storms this year. None of them directly up Baton Rouge. We've been lucky. It's very fortunate if you have a storm and you're on the west side of it, because you get the wind and none of the rain, and you can get some good days of work in.
For sure.
Yeah, but what I noticed when we were at one of the trade shows in
In New Orleans?
Which one?
New Orleans, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, sorry. But when we were out there, I just noticed a lot of the like architecture and the things that were built were very like old. And I mean, we were in a parking garage that
Oh yeah.
I was like, oh my God, I
I
don't
forgot about that.
this thing looks like horse carriages might have been going up this at one point in time. But you know, when you have older buildings and things that were made that haven't been restored from a long time ago, when a storm comes through, it's probably going to do a lot more damage to a community.
I really don't know. I mean, I think things were better built back then too. I mean, those folks who built those houses in the 20s and 30s, I mean, they didn't know what kind of technology was coming, and they didn't know when a storm was coming. So you built it to stand. And now, I think just some of the way things have changed with the industry. It's get them up quick, and
Yeah.
I mean, and with that, quality goes down a lot of times. So I don't know. New Orleans, those buildings have been there for a long time. They've battered a bunch of storms, and they still,
That's probably what it is.
yeah, keep
Yeah.
on rocking. What hurts them, I think, a lot of times is when a storm comes through and everybody leaves for 6 months and kind of forgets about the area, those areas, and then come back and, well, that particular owner didn't come back and just left it to be, and starts becoming blight, and then it's years before somebody takes it over, and kind of restores it. But
Yeah, it probably has a huge impact on your guys' economy as well,
oh,
where it's
yeah.
not something that we might experience here in Arizona, but something that kind of hits just your
Right.
general area,
Well,
puts people out.
One thing about Louisiana, it's very dependent on the oil industry. We have a ton of offshore rigs. One of the world's largest oil refinery plants is in Baton Rouge. So if you have a storm come through that shuts down the Mississippi River and shuts down those platforms, I mean, not only does it affect gas prices for everybody, but it affects our economy tremendously. Because if that plant shuts down for any reason, and those guys go home, that's not money in their pocket, and they can't spend it, and that's how economies work.
Mhm.
Right.
sure.
Oh yeah, because your grandfather was a machinist for Exxon, so it goes back as far
Oh, yeah.
as
Yeah, it's interesting that I want to say it was in the early 70s. Baton Rouge and Houston were about the same size, and Louisiana put more restrictions on the oil companies and more taxes on them. So the oil companies set up shop in Houston, and I mean, you could see what it looks like now.
yeah.
Yeah.
50 years later, there's a stark difference between Baton Rouge and Houston,
Yeah.
and the population, the economies, and both Houston, Baton Rouge, New Orleans, all dependent on oil and gas.
Yeah.
Huge industry in Louisiana.
Never knew that.
So I had an uncle that he went to Lafayette, and he was building in Lafayette, and Lafayette their community services all these oil rigs. And when in the early 80s, when they had the oil issues, in late 70s, early 80s, had a lot of the oil prices went crazy, and nobody could afford anything. And I mean, he actually had to move to another part of the state because he couldn't get any business. Nobody was buying pools. He didn't have any money to buy a pool. So he went to another part of the state and started building there for several years.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So while we're on the topic of history, you want to talk about some of these really cool artifacts that you brought in here?
Yeah, I brought a couple things that I knew I could fly with. So I brought two of our hats. One of them is our first hat. Actually, the only one. These are the only two of these left in existence, and I have searched and searched. But yeah, they're denim hats. They're so retro, dude.
Dude, these are
I mean-
super old school.
When I found these, we moved offices back in 2008, moved locations, and I found both of these in the back of a closet, and I was like, yes. And since then, I've been intentional of collecting the hats and keeping them, and I have them in my office. But yeah, these two hats are special because I mean I know one of them goes back to the 80s because it's got the Lafayette on it, and my uncle was in Lafayette only for a certain amount of years, and then the other one is just Baton Rouge, so that would have been prior to 80. So I mean that's pretty cool. And then so we used to be I don't know, back in the 70s, you didn't have Pool Corp, you didn't have SCP. You had companies called Sea Blue. That was kind of one of the main distributors in our area, and they produced their own pumps and their own return fittings, their own filters, and you kind of just put your order with them, and they supplied for you. And I brought one of the fittings from it. It's a return fitting, and it's actually ingenious on how it's made. It's a metal fitting, and back then you didn't have different eyeballs that you could change out to change your flow. So they built it with 4 different holes, and then it's got a plate on the front of it that tightens in on particular holes depending on what kind of flow you need. I mean, I was like, man, that's pretty damn cool. I mean,
super cool.
Yeah.
We kind of spoiled now. We just, hey, we need a 1/2 inch, I'll pop it in and there you go. But I mean, you actually, yeah. So you had to kind of think about it a lot because you had to put a metal adapter on that pipe to to start with. I mean, now we just cut the pipe off flush, and it's gone a lot easier. I brought some old probing rods for they're called pool computers. I'm not exactly sure when they're put out, but they test your pH and your chlorine levels. They work similar to like a soil tester for the pH. You put the rods in, but you put this in the water, and it's I don't know. It's the only 2 of these I have left. I have seen the pH pool computer on eBay, but I still cannot find out for how old they are. The company who produced these is long but out of business, but they were kind of cool. I know you guys were service guys. Y'all would appreciate seeing that.
Can't wait to share these with the people because these things are so freaking cool. So I'm sure these were before you, right?
Oh, all this before me. Yeah.
But you just stick that in the water. Did that have like a base or some kind of case for it, like the probes?
No, that was it.
You just
yeah. You just put the probes in the water and it tested it. There's an instruction manual with one of them, so
that's so
we can test it out after.
I know we totally should.
But I brought some old paperwork and pictures as well. I've got a picture of the first pool my grandparents built. It was their personal pool. I think the picture was actually taken in the 80s, but it's still, the pool hadn't really changed.
Right.
I've got that. I brought so I mentioned my grandfather had a book that he went and got to find out how to build his first pool. I have that book. I don't know. I didn't even know we still had it till a couple of years ago. I've always heard stories that he had the book, and I found it in the office somewhere, and I took it to my dad. Said, "Dad, is this the book?" So yeah, that's the one he used to have. I said, good to know. It's with me now. It's not going anywhere.
Oh, your dad probably seen that. If that was the book, probably seen it by him all the time.
Well, I mean, I
slept with that.
My dad probably has it memorized. I mean, yeah, I brought some old contracts. There's just cool history things that, I mean, it's interesting to me because I can see how much it's changed over the years. It's funny to look at pricing of how cheap things were in the 70s, and I go, I don't know, maybe they weren't that cheap back then, but to think you could build a swimming pool for $16,000, that's a big pool, man.
Right?
That pool was about 800, 900 square foot. That's all. Oh man, couldn't do that now. That's fun. It's fun for me to look back at that stuff. It means a lot. For me, it's a connection to my grandparents that I still have. They both passed away a couple of years ago in their 90s, and it's just still a part of who we are and who I am, and it's pretty cool to be able to have that to look back on.
Yeah, that's really cool, and we appreciate you bringing all this stuff. I think we always really appreciate the history, and it's important that we constantly talk about it because if it wasn't for what your grandfather did and your grandmother and your dad and you, pools wouldn't be what they are today because they pioneered the way in. It took the people that made that book and your grandfather building his pool and then the neighborhood pools and all these things, because once that happens, it becomes a part of our culture.
Right.
And then people throughout the country want pools, and then they figure out that they need to step up the education. Manufacturing gets more serious because of all the things that were pioneered in the beginning is why it is what it is today. So I think it's important for everybody to not forget the people that made the industry what it is, because without them, we would be doing something else.
Yeah, no doubt.
Be a machinist.
Right. Or a lawyer, or who knows what. But yeah, it's interesting that to look back and see some of the things that my grandfather did and where he was at. He was good friends with Frank St. Romain. If guys who don't know who he is, he started South Central Pools, which ultimately became Pool Corp. Frank St. Romain was our salesman when he was with Seablue before he started that, and There's stories of my grandfather helping him out. They were part of a buying group before he started South Central Pools, and they were trying to find a way to get more and different materials and different things in the area. There's stories that my grandfather helped Frank house some different things when he ran out of space when South Central was just starting. I mean, that's cool to look back and think, hey, had they had a different conversation, I might be doing something totally different than what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd love for him to have been the third partner in that instead of just a builder. But,
dude, in SEP, that's like one of the biggest companies in all of the industry.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's one of the largest companies in the United States. I mean, it's huge.
Oh, it's definitely a Fortune.
Yeah.
Fortune
I mean,
500
and
company.
to know that one of their first offices and distribution centers was right next door to ours back in the early 80s. And we've had that relationship going back. I mean, that doesn't lose. I mean, that holds a lot of weight on me when I look at our relationship now with SEP and what does it look like? And I know there's so much history there that I don't know that I could in good conscience go use another distributor for anything. That's just how, we've both helped each other out so much over the years in so many different ways. That's not lost on me. And
it's really interesting that it was started there, because you would think that something like that would have started where there was more swimming pools.
Well, yeah, I guess. I know the Baton Rouge branch has been one of their best performing branches for many, many years.
Oh, really?
Always has been. We contribute to that good bit, so that helps.
I was going to say, that's because Russell Pools is in there.
We've done quite a good bit to help them with that. But yeah, so it was small I know Pool Corp was small for a while and had a few branches here and there, but I think it really took off in the early 90s. I think we were bought by a private equity firm that really took it to a different level. I mean, they went public. That makes it even that much bigger, because then you have to perform. When you've got stockholders and shareholders that you're reporting to, you have to grow. You have to perform. So that's kind of pushed them in that way.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a great story.
It's
But you
pretty
wish
cool.
you got in on that,
Man.
I mean, you were probably too young, but
Well, look, they were so close that when my grandfather finally hung everything up, and I guess it was late 90s, early 2000s, that the St. Romains and SCP hosted his retirement party at their house. It was just,
oh wow.
I mean, that's more than just a business relationship. I mean, that's friendship for sure. And that was really cool. And I was just starting in the business at that time, and it was like, dang, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's
awesome.
a really cool story.
Here at Pool Chasers, we're all about sharing information so that you can become even more knowledgeable pool professionals. The folks at Pentair get that. And to show their appreciation, we invite you to enroll in the Pentair Partners Incentive Program. This flexible and simple program rewards you for your loyalty, starting with your very first sale of Pentair equipment or systems. Not only that, but being a partner gives you immediate and exclusive access to programs and training events, all which are developed to help drive even more business to your door. So to start earning rewards, visit pentairpartners.com or click the link in the write-up below.
So from when you were 12, working out there,
Mm-hmm.
what's your, kind of involvement been in your growth through the company and now as the owner?
Right. So I started when I was 12. I worked every summer with mostly with my grandmother. I cleaned pools for a couple summers with a service company. And then I guess once I got 16, 17, I could start driving. Then I was on the construction crew. When I went to college, I didn't really work with the company very much when I was there. I'd help in summers and whatever I could, but most of the time I was more worried about studies and things like that. I was never told I had to go to school. I mean, I could have gone straight into the pool company and worked with my dad, but it was just something I wanted to do. I wanted education, and
your dad took a whack at college, right?
yeah, he only went for a semester, and that was it. Now, my mom, she did have a college degree, and she was a teacher for a while, and then she worked in hospital administration for a little bit, for a long time. She retired for that after 30 years, but she knew the importance of a college degree. I mean, at 18, I didn't really know the importance of it. I didn't really understand what I was going to gain from it. I mean, so my logic as an 18-year-old is, well, I can always go build pools, but if I got a business degree, maybe I can make it better. So I can always have a job if I have a business degree. So let's do business. I didn't give it that much thought. I didn't give it as much as I should, but
That's still a pretty good thought.
You made a good choice.
yeah, it's turned out pretty
For a
good.
degree
I'm
wise.
not disappointed in having a business degree, but it wasn't some revelation that I had, hey, I want to be a businessman, and it wasn't that for sure.
Well, I got
We're
a lot
trying
of
to be on
friends.
Wall
that
Street.
It was more pragmatic. What
Yeah.
can I do to get a job? Business. Yeah, there we go.
Exactly.
I
I
can.
got a lot of friends who have like Christian ministry degrees or something like that don't get real.
Right.
It's very tough to get jobs with those. You know, you chose a business degree. That's
Well, I mean,
definitely a good choice.
I loved history, and I thought I would go into history, do political science, maybe do law school, something like that. But I'm doing these history classes, and I'm thinking, how am I going to get a job if all I have is a history degree?
Exactly.
I
You'd
do
be a
not want
history
to.
teacher.
I do not want to be a teacher.
But those jobs don't. I mean, the history teachers are like going into their 70s and 80s. You know,
Right.
These old history teachers. Those jobs don't
There's
come around.
not a lot of turnover in those.
No.
I was there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I knew I didn't want to be a teacher, and that was not my personality. And yeah, so all right, let's go to work.
Yeah.
I can work with business, so that's what I did.
Where'd you go to school?
I went to actually my first year I was at a small Christian college in Arkansas, and then I transferred to LSU my sophomore year and graduated from LSU in '98. So, but actually, in regards to, I guess you guys asked earlier about how I got getting into it, some of that process in '97. I think I started dating Monica. She's probably get on to me if I'm wrong. Was it '97? Yeah, it was
Very good.
'97.
You got the head nod.
Yeah, because she graduated. She graduated high school in '90. No, you graduated '97, so it was '96. Oh,
Oh, I
Oh,
see.
she was wrong.
Yeah, she's wrong.
we started dating in '96. She was still in high school. I was in college at LSU, and when we decided to get serious and get married, I went that week and talked to my dad and my uncle. Said, hey, I need to come work with you guys and start working. Nobody told me I had to do that. I mean, I don't know that she cared if I did that. I mean, we were young and stupid. We didn't have any money, so it didn't matter really where we lived or anything like that. But I knew that I needed to take care of her, and the best way to do that was have a real job, and that was an easy job to get. I didn't have to go interview for it. I just said, hey, give me the keys to the truck. Tell me where the job is. Let's go.
So had you graduated at that point?
I had not.
Oh, okay.
I was still an undergrad. I graduated, I guess, 6 months after we got married. I'd been working there about a year. I graduated.
Okay.
And that was fun because I'd work all day and pull up in my work truck on LSU's campus and mud and whatever, however I was that day, and go to class and then get back out and go to work again or go home, depending on what time of the day it was. That was interesting. But you did what you got to do.
Going to LSU at that time, were there other kids that were kind of doing the same thing, or were they all pretty?
No.
They're all on scholarships and their parents paid for them to be there.
Well, not necessarily that, but they weren't coming from work like I was coming from work, and they may be coming from the bar or the restaurant or wherever.
Right.
But I didn't have anybody else in my classes that looked like I did. I could promise you that. I promise you, I bet they didn't smell as bad as I did either. Some of those days, I felt sorry for some of them because you just didn't have a choice. But I did used to carry a bottle of Listerine in my cup holder with me because I knew I could gargle with that and at least give me a minty freshness when I
Something, yeah.
A minty freshness. That's awesome.
Damn, you just get done hunting or something? Where you been?
been in a hole. Yeah. Yes, I graduated in '98 from LSU. Actually, I went back in 2002 and got more education. I got a Master's of Divinity in Christian Ministry, and that was in 2000. I started that in 2002 and finished in 2006. So got a master's, did that. And then 2012, I thought, hey, let me get a PhD. So I went back to Kentucky for a year and did some PhD work. Actually was accepted into the PhD program there in leadership. And that's kind of when reality started sitting in with me again on, what do I want to do? Because I could go and do this education, and education's not tough for me, guys. I enjoy classes. I enjoy learning.
We can see that.
It never came hard for me. Even when I did my undergrad, I didn't have to struggle with it. I did my master's and with straight A's. And so, man, it was easy for me. And I'm sitting there, I've just been accepted, and you've got to sign a letter saying, hey, I'm going to do this, and this is how much it's going to cost. And I'm looking at how much it's going to cost. And I've got a daughter who's going into the seventh grade, and this is going to take me 5 years. Well, 5 years, she's graduating high school, and I've got to pay for her to go to school somehow. And the reality just kind of set in and said, man, this is all about me. This is not where I need to be. I need to do better. And so, I felt at that point I really wasn't leading properly. I'm going in to do leadership. That's what I want my PhD in, and I didn't feel I was really leading my family the way I needed to be leading them. Especially that way. I mean, I was working when I went to do my PhD. I was working part time at an auto shop. I was a service manager at an auto shop. She was at home homeschooling kids, and I'm doing classes at night, and it's just, that was not right. So I'm looking at that piece of paper, and I just say, you know what? Nah, I don't have to do this. I don't have to make her struggle. It's not fair to her and the kids. And so kind of sucked it up and called my uncle and my dad back. Said, hey, you guys need me back again? Yep, be here next week. It was that type of thing.
Was that difficult going back? I mean, it's just so crazy having such a good education. And I always say there's nothing wrong with being in the pool business, but you have a master's and trying to get a PhD and all these other things. Like, you don't need a PhD to build swimming pools.
No, I mean, and I've never felt that building pools was beneath me in any way. I love what I do. I mean, I really enjoy where I'm at right now, and I don't know that I would be enjoying myself as much as if I had a PhD and I was teaching or writing, all that, whatever a PhD does these days. Most probably teaching in the university is what I'd be doing. But that, I don't know. That just ultimately wasn't me. That was not who I was, and that's not who I wanted to be. And it's a difficult phone call to make because I've left. I left in 98 for 6 months. I left in 2002 for 3 years, and then left in 2012 for a year. And, man, you never know how that phone call is going to go. Because is this the last? You've taken me back twice. Oh, we're going to, that's an uncomfortable phone call. But every time that I've done that, it's been very well received. I think they're glad. They've always been glad to have me come back. There aren't many that do what I do in Baton Rouge.
You think you were kind of running from the company a little bit? I mean, you always kind of had a home there, but it seemed like you were trying to get away a little bit.
I do feel that in a lot. I never thought I wanted to take over the pool company. I never thought this is what my career was going to be. It was always going to be a good job for me. I always knew that. I always had a place. I knew I always would have a job there. I wouldn't have to worry with that. But for some reason, I always felt I wanted to do something different. Something, a lot of that's just immaturity. A lot of, most of it was. I mean, I know in 98 when I left it's just, we were fresh, married, hadn't been married a year. I mean, let's do something different, something fun, And so I took a job in New Orleans, and it lasted 6 months. And I remember that actually, I think that phone call, my dad called me back. I had been gone for 6 months, and he called me one night and said, hey, your uncle wants to know if you'll come back. Yep. And it's funny because we had a big flatbed truck. We called it Moby Dick because it was a whale of a truck. And one of our guys, he rode down with that truck and picked up, and we unloaded that apartment that afternoon, and he had me back at work. And right after.
As soon as you said yes, they're outside your window.
Right.
Whoa, you're already here?
Stanley's here waiting on you. Okay. But that was, yeah. She pointed me. We were pregnant at that time. We just found out we're having our first kid, so we were like, yeah, we need to be do a little bit better in what we're doing.
Right. I remember you said something prior to this discussion that you had seen a few things that might have put a strain on the relationship between your grandfather and your father.
Yeah, no doubt.
Did that ever have something to do with maybe?
No, I never thought that as a reason not to do it because of that relationship. I will say this. I think some of the best relationships that I've had with my dad is when we weren't working together. Those years that I were away, I mean, those were some of our best years as far as communicating with each other and talking about things other than swimming pools. Yeah. So those years were different. So, yeah.
I think there's tons of different experiences that you can have. Because I think, say you're exactly like your dad. Like if I'm
Right.
exactly like my dad and we're on a job site, we might be trying to prove to one another
Right.
that we know more or we're doing better.
Right. No
Especially
doubt.
one that has been out maybe in the field longer, but maybe I know a new trick or I have a little bit more education.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about.
Look, I could still call my dad and ask him about different formulas or different things that I need, and I'm not too proud to do that because I know I don't know everything most of the time. That relationship and that knowledge there was just. I mean, my dad knew so much, and it was just he never went to school to learn how to build a swimming pool or to learn the formula. He just started out his own and learned it, and we did it. That kind of puts us ahead of the learning curve. When you do something and fail, you learn differently than if you read it. I've learned that. But that, I think a lot of guys in our area look at our company and think, man, they do it so easy, so well, and they think it's going to be easy and they could do it just like us. And what they don't realize is, man, we're so far ahead of the learning curve than those guys. We've been doing it for 50 years. I mean, there's things that my dad and grandfather saw and did that they've never heard of. Mm-hmm. They couldn't contemplate what they had to go through to build some of those pools and the growing pains that we went through. I mean, that's part of our. I think it benefits our process in a tremendous amount that we've got so much experience, no doubt. And I think that's a lot of people are paying us for our experience. To be honest with you, I mean, they'll sit on our waiting list and wait for us, or we've got multi-generations calling us now. Third, grandkids that my grandfather built their grandparents' pool, and we're building for them now. And it's because of that experience that they know if you've done it for this long, you've done something right, mm-hmm. and you must be doing something right. And so they'll wait for us.
That's really cool. And I want to touch a little bit on leadership. How did you bring that into Russell Pools? Because I've been watching a lot more coaches and different things mm-hmm. like that. And there's so many amazing techniques out there to just, a coach needs to put confidence in their team.
Right.
Even like a company, not just sports, but you have to put confidence in them so that they can kind of mm-hmm. go above and beyond. But what have you learned and what have you put into your company, or maybe what have you learned from your parents or your grandparents?
Well, I mean, I've learned a lot from not just my parents and grandparents, but my uncle as well. I mean, Keith he's really good with people, and he knows how to dissolve situations when they arise. And so, particularly if we're looking at leadership, I don't think I'm a bad leader. I think I could be a whole lot better than I am. I don't think I'm as good of like you said, coaching. I'm not as good of a coach as I should be. I know that about myself. But with leadership, one of the biggest things you got to know is you got to learn people, and you've got to understand where they're coming from sometimes to get them to do what you want them to do. I mean, everybody's got a backstory. Everybody's got an experience that makes them the way they are. Sometimes you've got to learn to be patient. Sometimes when you're making changes, I've heard Eric Knight use the rubber band with pH, and you can only go so far and slams back and forth. Man, people are like that too. They're like rubber bands. You can only push them so far, and then they'll, if a rubber band's going to catch back up, same thing. They'll catch up with you, but you can't push them too far. You push them too far, they break, and you lose employees, you lose relationships, you lose customers. So that's it's a definitely fine line on how far you push and don't push. So
you think being a owner that still goes out in the field and you're doing plumbing and you're overseeing jobs and all these things, do you think that the team sees you as one of them and maybe not so much as, the owner that just kind of checks in, and there's nothing
right.
wrong with that, but is mostly doing a lot of the office work, but you're kind of seen as, one of the guys that's out there.
Well, I have no doubt about that, because it's interesting. I'm on the job with my crews a whole lot more than Keith is. Keith is not out there as often as I, and I can see the relationships different that I have with my guys, my crews, than Keith has with them. They don't see him in the same light as me. It's just different because Keith is not there. He's, doing sales and doing whatever salespeople do. He's doing his job.
But they don't need to like him. The customers need to like him.
Right, exactly. And that's kind of the point there.
Yeah.
The customers like him, and that's what they're supposed to. The customers, if they like me, I'm the kind of person, I don't really care. You like me or not, I'm a do my job and it's going to be done right. I get complaints about that. He hears it all the time, that I may be a little bit rough around the edges sometimes. Okay. Is your pool right? We're good. But yeah, so yeah, I definitely see that my crew, I mean, some of them see me as one of them. I mean, Chase is, he's my head guy, and we've been working together for 10 years, and he and I have gone through a tremendous amount of stuff together, different jobs, different issues on jobs, personal stuff. We, had one of my cousins passed away, and Chase was with him when that happened. And so he went through that, and I've been with him, walking him through that and with him. It's just, our relationship with our employees it's difficult sometimes to manage and maintain, but if you don't have that, they don't work as hard for you. You got to make it more of a job. If it's just a job, that's all they'll ever treat it as. And, for Chase, for example, I mean, I've made him a part of a lot of different things that we've done and trying to make him feel ownership of the work that we do. I brought him out here to Arizona with me 2 years ago for a tributary trip. I mean, I didn't have to do that, but I wanted him to experience some of what, I'm where I'm at because of those guys. I mean, if you see my pictures on Instagram, it's not all because of me. It's because Chase was with me and these other guys were with me, and I want them to get some of those accolades too. And I mean, they don't get them enough. They don't get to post the pictures and get the likes that we do.
Exactly. And I think it's more important than ever, that you treat the people that are down in the hole or digging the hole and building this pool with as much respect as possible, because every day they're checking out.
Yeah. And look, I'll admit I've not done that good some years. There have been some employees I've not probably done that as well as I should have. It's very difficult as an owner. I mean, there's some personalities that will just rub you the wrong way. It's getting really hard for whatever reason. This new generation they're notoriously difficult to get focused on especially in construction. It's not, I don't know what it is, but I mean, I cannot get someone under 25 to stay on my crews.
I think it's because they don't understand that what you want maybe like working a normal shift 9 to 5, but you really like, being a part of the pool building process or whatever it may be. What I see that people don't understand is that you got to put your time in. You got to show up early, and you don't leave until what you're supposed to be, whatever your job is done. Mm-hmm. Like there's no, it's time for me to leave. I'm just going to leave everything here and check out, or I'm going to drop this right now because it's my mandated lunch break or whatever it may be. But it's going like above and beyond and getting the respect from the owner and everybody else, so that with time, that's how people get promoted, is because it's like, when it comes time to replace somebody or we're moving people up or the company is growing, I think it has a lot to do with this individual right here that comes in early and does good work and asks lots of questions and wants to go away for education and different things like that. The person that just wants to do the minimum, but they want to, they want
all the reward.
Yeah. It doesn't work like that. I don't care about technology or any of that. You got to put in the work.
Right. Now you said it's absolutely true. And I see that with some of these younger kids. They come in, they think they're going to be like Chase and me. And man, Chase and I have been doing this for a long time. A lot of it's muscle memory, and you're just not going to be. We've got that experience. You'll get there if you trust us to teach you how to do it. Yeah, you can be the next Chase on my crew, but you're not walking in day one and gonna have that. And I agree. They don't want to put the work in to get there. And I do think a lot of this generation thinks it's beneath them to do construction work, that they're too good to be in the hole digging and whatnot. Sorry to tell them, man, you make a whole lot of money doing some of that work. Learn how to be a mason. I don't know any poor masons.
Nope.
I don't know any poor plumbers. You kidding me?
Well, if we don't have those people, we don't have anything.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like even the things that are made by robotics and things like that, the things that make those work comes from humans doing physical labor in order to make that work. Like those get cut out, you're screwed.
Well, the reality is no matter where AI goes, if it's in your house, you're going to do it, or a person's going to have to do it, because they're not going to send a machine to your house to put a pool in, or fix your light bulbs or whatever you need done, change your toilet out. A person is going to have to do that. And man, those guys can make great money.
Nothing ain't going to be able to answer all your questions. That's for sure.
That's right.
We're here complaining.
Terminator looking thing. I got a question for you.
Alexa's not fixing that toilet. They might can send it to your door, but they're not going to put it on for you. So,
for sure.
I don't want robots in my house.
I don't either.
Yeah. Since 1979, Lion Financial has helped make backyard dreams come true nationwide. Lion Financial is a specialist in pool financing solutions, offering low rates, long terms, and unmatched customer service. Their programs offer your customers the best in pool financing options, with programs available for scores of 640 and above. Lion Financial will finance more than 21,000 projects in 2020 and is a premier leader in pool financing options. Due to popular demand, Lion Financial's 2.99% special for a 3-year term has been extended throughout the remainder of 2020. Lion Financial's experience is unique to pools, not just any type of loan. They are a partner with both the homeowner and the pool builder until the project is completed, ensuring pool professionals are paid on time and in full. It is absolutely free for pool contractors to partner with Lion Financial to grow their business. Lion Financial is committed to providing an excellent customer service experience. Homeowners will never be charged a consulting fee or prepayment penalties, and a pool builder will never be charged a swipe fee for accessing their own hard-earned money. When it comes to something as important as a pool and all the memories that come with it, work with true professionals who have your best interest in mind. With more than 41 years of experience specializing in pool financing solutions, why trust anyone but the experts? To find out more, check out episode 94 of the podcast or click the link below. So you mentioned your cousin, Chase being there, and you are the only son, right?
Well, there were only 2 grandsons in the family. My dad had me, and then my Uncle Keith, he had his oldest child was a son. Taylor was his name. Taylor he was 9 years younger than me, so we had a pretty big gap between us. And I think he graduated high school maybe early 2000s. I don't know, but needless to say, he played baseball for a little bit at so like a small junior college, community college type thing, and then he wasn't the school type. It was not for him. I honestly, looking back, I really think Taylor wanted to run Russell Pool. I think he wanted to be 100% into it. I mean, every day he showed up, he was balls to the wall, and
hungry.
He was hungry. I really think he wanted to be the next Russell Pool. Of course, he and I were 9 years different. There's a lot of difference in that age. I've got kids. I've got different goals, different things I'm looking at than he was. And I just really, so I left in 2012 to go do my PhD. And a lot of that was because I wasn't sure. I was positive at that point. I didn't really think I wanted to do it, to keep doing pools. I knew Taylor did, and I was content with letting Taylor do this. I didn't want to have any type of contention there between the two, between anybody, between my dad and his brother, between me and my cousin. That's just, when you start getting to 3rd generation, there's a lot of different personalities that start coming in. And I've never been that kind of person that's looking for confrontation. It's like, you know what? I don't have to be here. I've got education. I can go get more education. I can do other things I've had to. So I had planned, we started planning, I guess, in 2011. Let's move away. We'll do this. We'll move on. I'll let Taylor he can have it, do his thing. No big deal to me. And we were set to leave July 1st of 2012. And we got a phone call May 5th that he had been in a boating accident and passed away. And, I remember, I never forget that phone call from my dad. My cousin was an outdoorsman. Every weekend he was in the woods doing something. We're on a boat or a deer stand. All the time. And I never forget, my dad calls on that Sunday morning and says, "We've lost your cousin." And my first thought is, well, he's pretty smart. He's going to figure his way to get out of the woods. I thought that he was lost in the woods somewhere. They'd been out hunting, goofing around. And said, he goes, "Nah, he was in a boating accident." And I was like, "What?" And that was, Yeah, I mean that really shook our company, our family. I mean, it's so many different levels that hit on because I mean, I mean, it's tragic when you lose any family member, especially a son. He was young. I mean, he was mid-20s. He passed away on May 5th, and his first child was born May 17th. He was had a kid coming. I
Damn.
mean, I mean, it was tough. I mean, it really took a toll on my uncle. It was tough on him, no doubt. I mean, I didn't expect it not to be, but I mean, that was 6 weeks before we were set to leave. I mean, we're leaving town. I'm done with this. I'm never coming back. And this happens. And so that weighed heavy on me that year I was gone. I mean, because, yeah, I mean, it's just business. I know that, but it's still a family and everybody's in it. And I just kind of felt like, man, yeah. When I started looking back, and it was, yeah, a lot of the decision was based on our oldest child and not having, not being selfish and taking what I could save for them. But yeah, that's true. But I mean, some of it was the tug back because here's my family. There's no doubt they need me. Yeah. I mean, I knew that. I mean, what I provided for them is hard to replace. And so, yeah, that weighed heavy on me. I don't know what it would look like if Taylor had not passed away. I mean, I may not have come back. I mean, man, that's a guessing game I don't want to play. But, ultimately it brought me back and got me back into it. And, things are a lot different now. I guess, I mean, my uncle, we've had a good relationship my entire life, but I mean, as an employee and boss, you have friction there. There's no doubt. I mean, every family's got friction. I mean, who am I kidding? I mean, there were issues there. I mean, he didn't like that. I don't think he liked that I took off as much as I did. I mean, I like to be with my wife and kids. We like to travel. We like to be together and do those things. That's that's kind of my generation. We like to do those things. We value that. I didn't care how much money I made. If I didn't have them, it didn't matter. So I think we kind of brushed against each other a couple of times on that. And so, but when I came back in 2013, I mean, I could tell he was a lot more open to me being there. And even when I came back in 2013, I did not think I'd own Russell Pool. I really kind of thought I was coming back just to help them get back stabilized. I really didn't know that this is what I was going to keep doing for a couple more years. That finally came probably around 2016, 17 is when I said, yeah, let's make this real. Let's do something with this.
And why is that exactly? I mean, it seems like just a whirlwind of like big decisions that keep on having to be made, whether you go to school or I'm going to stay here or am I going to stay with the company? And it's a lot.
And I don't think I've made any more or different decisions than anybody else out there. Everybody gets crap thrown at them and they have to deal with it. And, you just try to make the best decision that you can. You try to weigh every possibility, every consequence, what's this going to look like for us. And to be honest with you, in 2016, I turned 40. And so I'm kind of, things change when you turn 40. You start looking at things differently. You get midlife crisis or whatever. And so I had decided, what, it's enough of being an employee. I need to do something on my own. And so I started, even then, 2016, I was looking to leave. I was going to go, I was actually actively researching companies in Texas and Arizona, California that I knew. I mean, with my experience, I didn't think I'd have any problem getting a job in any of those markets with my knowledge and my experience. And I was looking to see, hey, which of these best match up with my philosophies and my motivations. And I was looking, and my parents pulled me aside one day and said, hey, are you going to buy this from us? And Monica and I said, no, we're not going to buy this. And we told them, and this was in 2016. I told them, no, I'm not going to buy it. And I kept looking, I kept thinking and considering and contemplating what's this going to look like? If I go out and do something on my own or go work for somebody else. Well, first, if I go work for somebody else, I'm in the same situation I am. This really doesn't progress me any further than I am. If I go out and do something on my own, no matter where it's at, I'm starting over. And it's all this, it's different when you start up. And there's so much things that are there that I don't know people consider, whether it's marketing and advertising and insurance and employees and human resources, all these different things that, It's more than just going and building a pool when you own a business. There's so much that's there that you have to consider and think about. And when I started considering and think about it, I was like, well, I could go start my own thing and yeah, we'll do well. We'll probably struggle. I'm gonna have to do all the sales. I'm gonna have to do all the stuff that I don't like. Or my dad wants to retire. I could buy him out and be a part of this. It's an old machine. Yeah, it's got some issues, but if I change the oil, I do the right things to it. Hey, this is a badass muscle car that we can have the sucker roll, and we could do a lot of cool stuff. And I had the bones were there. It's a great company. It always has been. It's been a profitable company. We've always operated in the black, and we don't have any debt. I mean, those things you don't get with a startup. I'm gonna have debt. There's no way around that. And so
the name is priceless. I mean, Russell Pools has been around since
absolutely. Well, I can go call it Russell Pools in Austin, Texas. That don't mean shit.
Yeah.
But in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, that actually means something.
Yeah, you built my parents' pool, or you built my grandparents'
Right.
pool, or whatever. Yeah.
And so, I mean, when I after all that was said and done, all the contemplating and thinking about it, it was easy to make that decision. You know what? Let's just stay here and make this better. And that's what we'll do. And that was what I decided. That was in 2017, I think.
Was that a difficult thing to do for your family? I mean, did your wife and kids maybe want to go do something else?
No, Monica has always been supportive. She's followed me on every wild hair that I've had, no matter what I've wanted to do. She's been a trooper. All right, let's go do it. And so, she's always been a cheerleader, supportive, no matter what. I probably wouldn't have been the same. She's a saint for that. When I decided, I'm going to do this, I'm going to buy my dad out. She was teaching 6th grade at the time, and she was not having fun. I knew she did not enjoy that atmosphere. It was not what she wanted to do. I mean, I think she was very good at it. She could have done it for a long, long time if she wanted to, but it just wasn't what she wanted to do. Now, the thing about Monica, she is a finance nut. I mean, she is a prolific reader, and probably 80% of the books she reads have some sort of financial tilt to them. No kidding, guys. I mean, she knows her stuff. And so when I started talking to my dad, hey, let's make this happen, the very first thing I said was I said, this is going to happen. And I told my uncle this, we're changing our bookkeeper, and Monica's going to come in here and run our books, because there's nobody else, even myself, that I trust with my money more than her. I mean, she takes care of us, Russell Pool, and myself, and our kids, like no other. So I knew I wanted her in that office. Years ago, we had some consultants. We paid way too much money to come in, and it was tough. They were horrible at what they taught us. But one thing that I took from it is that every business is like a stool. You got 3 legs. You've got a financial side, you've got a sales side, and you got an operations side. And if any one of those 3 is weak, the company's going to fall. And we had no issues with sales and operations ever. Between my dad and myself on operations and my uncle on sales, man, there was never going to be an issue. Our financial side's where we were having trouble. And the lady who was running it, I didn't trust her. I knew Keith and Tommy did not trust her at all. I knew they wouldn't have any problem with me making that suggestion. And that was kind of a non-negotiable. Monica's coming in. She's going to start working with us. And when the papers are signed, she starts that next day as our bookkeeper and our finance manager.
Wow, that's really cool. I was just about to ask, what were some of the first things that you did when you first
that was the very first thing I did. We were talking probably 4 months prior to the actual close date on the sale, and I brought her in as soon as we started talking to her. She came in and started working with us in the front office, answering phone calls, kind of doing some of the service stuff, learning some of that, learning some of the lingo, just kind of learning who's who in there. And I'm telling you, the day.
It's kind of like the 6th grade, huh?
Yeah, that's kind of like the 6th grade.
Absolutely. Yeah, she says that all the time. She's just got older 6th graders now.
Right.
I'll expand on what you just asked if you'd like. I mean, so I made the change with her in the office, and probably the second thing I did was I got us involved again. Back in the 80s, my grandparents were very involved in SPI. They used to have, each state had their own chapter back then, and they were very involved in it. And for whatever reason, my dad and uncle never cared to get involved. They would go to the national shows ever so often, but they were never, I don't know. I guess they wanted to keep the secret recipe hidden or whatever, and they want whatever. I mean, I don't mind telling guys how we do stuff because I know they can't do what I do. That's the bottom line. I've got and if they can, most of them aren't going to. They don't have the desire to. So hey, yeah, I'll tell you for you just to know, but you're not going to do it. I know that. And
That's always the difference.
yeah,
It takes another person to do the work.
right.
There's a million YouTube videos out there that actually share some really good stuff, but 99% of the people that watch it
Aren't going to do anything with it.
Yeah.
And it's the same with us. The second thing I did is I got us involved in a group called Tributary, and that's been really good for us as well. It's got us in connection with and networking with some other builders across the country. I mean, some guys that are doing some phenomenal work. That's just, man, it's amazing. But just to have that group of builders and designers I can call and ask, and because part of what I want to do is to build those. We were building luxury pools, but we could do them a whole lot better. I mean, it could be a lot more kick-ass, and there's things we could do that really help the process, and we can do things better. I mean, that's, I don't know if you've ever seen some of the education stuff. I mean, the best getting better. I mean, I want to get better every day. I mean, that's how you stay where you're at. That's how you progress, is to get better.
Yeah.
You want to be number one? That's fine, be number one. But you don't stay number one if you don't get better. And I'm dead set that Russell Pool, we're going to get better. We're going to get better every day. Whether it's how my guys glue joints, is whether how we cut our gunite walls. I do a tremendous amount of education. I preach it, try to get my guys to listen to podcasts and to read books and read magazines. I've got a couple that have kind of drank the Kool-Aid and starting that. That's tough. I mean, because the reality is most of those guys struggled in high school, didn't go to college. If they did, it was for a little bit. They struggled at it, didn't really care for it. And for me to say, hey, you need to read this chemistry stuff, and what? I didn't like it in 11th grade. But if you want,
that's a personal thing, right? You gotta. I can't tell you anything. You got to make that choice yourself. Just like, everybody that's involved with Tributary, like it's an amazing group of individuals, and that's where I actually met you. But you got to make that choice, and you got to want better, and you have to want to be around like-minded individuals and get behind sort of their ethos and their mission in the industry.
Right. That's one of the things I love about Tributary. I mean, these guys have if they wanted to have the ego, they could. The work that they do is just amazing. I mean, you've seen some of their posts and some of the pictures of the work they've done, but you meet with them and you talk with them, and the ego is not there.
That's the biggest difference.
Yeah.
From the first time that I hung out with a group of people, got invited by Jeremy and got to be around all the Tributary members, I was like, this is insane that there's this many builders and designers, and everybody is completely normal and cool and asking you questions and not just flexing left and right.
Right.
I mean, you didn't even say anything about anything until I'm just like, jabbing at you like, man, how long you been doing pools? Like, the company's been around since, the early 1900s. Like, but I thought that was so cool because I like to think that that's how we are. You show what you can do by what you do, not by what you tell people.
Our work speaks for us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I want to go back a little bit on why you had a consultant come into the business. Was it pool industry specific? I don't need a name or anything, but
no, it wasn't pool industry specific. It was, I don't even remember the name of the company, to be honest with you. I love my dad, but he was a sucker for a salesman. And
don't send Girl Scouts over there, man.
Oh my gosh. He was sold everything, and I don't know who they talked him into coming in and doing some consulting with us, and man, that was not good.
So, I mean, some of the things that they found is that when you started kind of looking at the books and different things like that, or was that like after the fact?
No, I've always looked at the books. Being in business, I've always had an interest. Well, what are we doing here?
Oh, even before you became a owner in the business?
Before I became an owner. Keith and Tommy were pretty open with me. with the books. I could get the balance sheets and look at that and say, oh man, I had the education, so I knew what I was looking at, and I could give some advice. I mean, they were aware of that, so they opened them up to me. But yeah, we all three of us agree that was a horrible decision to bring those consultants, but I did glean that one useful piece from them.
Yeah.
It wasn't worth that. Definitely was not worth the money we spent.
Right.
Okay.
I'm curious, when you brought your wife into the picture to do the books and different things like that and do all the financials, since she's so good at it, did the business model change at all where you started seeing things that needed to be taken out? I mean, did you need a smaller team, a bigger team? Did you need less space? Like what?
And hey, even Keith will be the first to tell you that where we're at today compared to 2 years ago is night and day. It's not because of he and I, it's because the work that she's done in that office. I mean, she has cleaned those books up. It's taken her a long time, a lot of work, but the books are clean now. We know where everything's at. We know what money is where it's at. Everything's being absolutely paid on time. Nothing's being double paid. I think a lot of business owners, they don't realize how much money they're losing because they don't know their books and they don't know what's going on in that office. And we've learned that the hard way. It's been nice to, hey, there's more money here that we could have been making all these years if we just paid attention. That's kind of tough sometimes.
Do you think that's sometimes because of, and this is like a whole nother episode in itself, but because when you're building a pool and running a company, there's so many different things going on that you're spending money and you don't realize how much you're spending.
Right. It happens. Absolutely. I mean, as a small business, setting budgets is sometimes one of the last things you want to do on a job. I mean, we're going so fast. We're doing so much work. I mean, there's only 6, 7, 8, 9 of us in the building. I mean, it's not a big company. So sometimes you just kind of just keep going with the flow and, hey, we're making some money. So some money's better than no money. We must be doing something right. And we don't realize, hey, wow, we could be making a whole lot more money if we just take the time to look at these numbers a little bit closer. And so we did make a lot of changes. She's done a really great job with that. I mean, no doubt.
That's very cool. And what were some of the other changes? Maybe not so much financial, but I don't know. Did you have to sit down and be like, if I'm going to buy you guys out or I'm going to buy you out, like this is like what's going to happen? These are some things that I've known about for a long time and I want to change.
Not really. I mean, the finances was the main thing. Being involved in education are the two other things that I really felt we needed to be stronger in. I knew it could make us better. Both of those, all three of those aspects, really. I guess, the other thing, we do have the service company. For whatever reason, actually, I know the reason we've not done well with it is because us owners have not been involved in it as we should. We've not had either a good manager there. Most of the issues with our service company has been management issues, no doubt. Either we've had a manager who was stealing from us, not paying SEP on time, not, doing all kinds of different things that just bad managers do. And the problem we had is we weren't watching them close enough. And so we'd have a bad manager in there that'd go for a year. And then all of a sudden we owe 6 figures to SEP that we're behind and there's no money there. Like, oh, whoa, it's been mismanaged over different years. We've got a great manager in now. That was one of the things Keith and I, when I bought my dad out from the service company, we talked about that extensively. What's that look like? Because I'll be honest with you guys, I don't like service. I don't want to do that work. Keith is the same way. To this day, he'll tell you he does not know how to put a seal in. And he does not want to because he does not want to have to go fix one on a weekend when somebody calls him. Now he's got plausible deniability. Somebody says, hey, my pool pump's leaking on a weekend. If he knows, he's going to go out there and fix it. If he doesn't, sorry, you have to call you call my service department and we'll get our service manager out there. But neither one of us wanted to be hands-on service manager. So we had to find somebody that was competent enough to do that. And we've got a guy now in there that he's doing really good work with it. We're back profitable. We're made a lot, that's helped a lot having that manager in there.
And what didn't you like about it?
About service work?
Yeah.
I don't know. You're in a tight spot. It's hot. Most of the time you're soaking wet from sweat.
It's very repetitious, whereas
it
you're
is
building a pool,
right.
things can change a little bit.
It can be, well, especially cleaning pools. I cannot clean pools. That is too repetitious for me. I start losing my mind. You guys talked with me enough. I think a lot, and when you start thinking too much and not able to process that out, it really starts hurting and affecting your mind. And so I can't do cleaning. The surface work wasn't bad, but it just wasn't enough for me. I liked the part of building and the creative side of it. When I get done building a pool, man, it's a piece of art that I've built.
Right.
No matter what the function is at the end of it, it's some of them are very nice pieces of art. Hard to replicate.
Yeah.
I love that about it. I like being outside too much to be inside.
Right.
What's your favorite part about the job?
Probably plumbing. I really enjoy being in the ditch and gluing those fittings. It's muscle memory for me. I'm one of those guys. I don't have to have a tape measure anymore because I've cut enough pieces of pipe for a filter when I hook them up. I know how far down, how many words we're looking at, and how many letters and numbers are there, and so I love to. I still do all of our manifolds and plumbing. I still do all our filters to this day. Monica wishes I wouldn't. She wishes I'd get out of that and pass it on. And I've got Chase. He does well. He's done some filters for me. He can do all that, but Chase is more valuable on the machine.
Mm-hmm.
And so when he's on the machine, he can run the machine twice as well as I can, and I can do the plumbing twice as fast as him. So it works out great for us. We complement each other very well in that. I've got a new guy that I've started with us. He was with my service. He was a service tech for 2 years, and he wanted to. He's got desire to stay in the pool industry, and he had talked with me about it. So I brought him over to construction because I really feel for him to be really good at what he wants to do, especially if he wants to be in this industry. He needs to see other sides of it, and so he's on my construction crew and teaching him how to. I would love for him to replace me at one point because that's what she wants. She wants me out of that hole.
Why do you think it's so difficult to replicate what somebody does? Because I know it's difficult for everybody. It's
Yeah.
like you put all the time into figuring out your process and how you do it. But it's just so hard in thinking that somebody can come in and do what you do.
Yeah, there's no doubt someone could come in and do what I do. It's a filter. It's not heart surgery. But I don't know. The process of thinking is differently sometimes. And I think that's where people miss out on replicating. You can't replicate my thought process when I do something. So when I stand back and look at a filter set and it's a puzzle that doesn't have a picture to go by, my thought process is different than the new guy I've got coming in. I'm training, and that's what's that's what's difficult to teach. I can teach somebody to glue fittings together and hook up to do the work, but to teach the thought process of thinking, okay, if I put this here, how does that affect this down here? If I put this here, that's what's hard to teach. Mm-hmm. And there aren't really any classes that teach thought process, and that's sometimes just
experience.
That's experience.
Yeah.
And that's what I say with the muscle memory. I'll look at it and I know exactly where everything needs to go because I've done it so many times, and you can't replicate experience. You can't replicate that.
Even just the amount of time it takes in making a decision,
right?
Where they might get to the same conclusion,
exactly.
But if it takes you a second, where it might take somebody 20 minutes to figure out what they need.
Yeah.
Like you've already been to the parts store or back to the truck and back by the time you figure it out.
Chase was actually getting really good with me on that. I was training him to do filters for a while, and he was getting really, really good at the thought process, but the way things work out, he doesn't do it. He doesn't do it as often. I can still send Chase to go hook up a filter, but if you don't do it every time, you kind of start losing it. So he's not as fast as he used to be. He'll ask a question that I know he knows the answer to. He's done it enough. But yeah,
And when are you guys actually plumbing the equipment set?
So we plumb our equipment sets right before we plaster. We do ours. I know a lot of companies, even in Baton Rouge, there's a lot of pool companies that will plumb the entire pool and put the set on up. So in Baton Rouge, we're required to get a rough end plumbing, and they will not accept it if the filter equipment's on the pad. They want no filter hooked up. It's still a pressure gauge giving you 30 pounds of pressure.
I was gonna say, is that because of the pressure test?
That's what they say. You could still pressure test one with the filter on there. I mean, it's done the rest of the country, but it's not worth the argument with an inspector. So, and we've always done it that way. I mean, it works for us. We've actually, we're one of the few companies, I guess, in our area, I know for sure, that actually, when we set our pipes, we set them in concrete. We don't set them loose. So when we pour our decks, we pour our filter pad, and then we set after that. Again, that's just a preference, I guess, that we do. There's not any really rhyme or reason or better or worse of doing it that way. But I will say it's one thing I hate about doing it that way, and and I may change it for too long, is if the deck crew does not set those pipes right when they're setting them in concrete and they're at a 10-degree angle, it makes it hell to put a valve on and get it plumbed up to the pump. And the last thing I want to do is put a torch on a pipe and try to straighten up a pipe that's only 8 inches long coming out of the concrete anyway, because it's going into a wet end, and it's a 1.5-inch pipe. You can flex it but we don't use 1.5 inches. I mean, I'm plumbing with 2.5, 3-inch pipe. Man, you guys know you can't flex a 3-inch pipe anywhere. No. Are you kidding me? it'll break that wet end before that pipe moves.
Right. Yep.
And so we're getting more complicated with our plumbing and our bigger pipe. Just I heard y'all talk to Justin, and he was talking about not having to use sweeps, upsize your pipe. I mean, we do that too. I've used sweeps. I've used them some recently. Man, they're ugly as hell. I agree with them. And so I'll just upsize my pipe. And if I'm gonna keep upsizing my pipe, I know I'm gonna have to change and not put them in concrete, because I need that flexibility that it affords. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, we do our pads, our filter pads.
That's just almost adapting, man.
Yeah,
you're learning and changing things and find a better way to do it. You know?
Yep.
And what's the oldest pool that Russell Pools knows about? Is there one that you take care of that was something that your grandfather might have built?
I don't think so. I'm looking at Monica, because she deals more with the service. I don't think we have any that are 70s or 80s on our books right now. Most of our service customers are pools that we built. One of the mottos that my dad and uncle always had is we service what we build. And so that was, we build enough pools in a year that if we need to find somebody to fill in a spot on our weekly revolving, we've got enough of a backlog there that we can fill that in. We only do about 150 pools a week on a revolving cleaning service. That's the ones we technically maintain every week. And I think most of them are ours. We have done some other pool builders in the past, but again, I don't want to take somebody else's work that I know was not done to my standards and quality and put it on my team. I'd rather I've got enough work out there that I've done. I don't have to struggle and fight for.
So much better though when you get to service pools that you built, and your service guys are only working on that equipment and those type of pools.
You can ask probably any service tech in Baton Rouge, and you know which pads are mine.
Yeah.
They're all distinct. They're all,
It makes it so much easier, man.
Oh yeah. Everything's going to
take pride in that, don't you?
Absolutely. I love that.
I love that for sure.
Yeah.
Me too.
But that's those pools are a testimony of what you guys do, because if you're even taking care of pools from 2000, that's a 20-year-old pool,
right?
Where that your process must be correct, because everything is working properly. The only thing is maybe equipment needs to be swapped out here and there, but for the most part, it's structurally sound.
Well, so case in point, we started a renovation on a pool last week before I flew out. We built that pool in 98, and we had taken care of that pool from 98 until recently. We just stopped taking care of it to start renovation on it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And we'll take care of it probably whenever we're finished with it.
That's crazy. That's awesome.
So besides the podcast, we've talked a lot about planning for the future.
Yeah.
And, I think some people might look at that and think of it as being like a like you're planning to exit because you don't want to do this anymore, but it's more of
No.
there's a million things
Right.
that can go wrong I mean, look at what probably happened to like builders and service companies when, California was going through these droughts, and that's huge. And if you don't have some kind of backup plan or, different things going on,
Right.
it can really
Look,
hurt you.
I think as a business, everyone who is involved in ownership of business needs to have some sort, and I'll call it an exit strategy. It may be a dissolution or whatever it may look like. You need to know where you're going. You need to see the end. The end may be you're turning it over to your kids and they're running it, and that's fine. But you need to know what that's going to look like. And I really think, Monica and I, we talk about it, all the time. What is it going to look like 5 years from now for us, 10 years from now? If we decide to if we buy Keith out, what is that going to look like for us and our family? How is that going to affect our dynamic? I would love if I do buy Keith out for her to be my partner. I want her to buy Keith out, actually. We've talked about that several times, that we would be equal partners in this. If we've not made any decisions in that, but we talk about it. And I think those conversations are extremely important, not just among spouses, but among business partners as well. You need to know what's going to happen if something happens. In my family alone, we've had issues. In the 80s, my dad had cancer, and so he was out for a couple of years, with chemo with that. They were able to adjust and make it through that. My cousin passes away in 2012, and we've had to adapt and change. There are things that are going to happen in the life of a business. You don't know what's going to happen. You can't really plan for those things, but you have to have a plan in place to know it's going to be okay. We're going to do this is how this is going to work if it happens, and it can be done well. I think the transition from my dad to me has gone well. I don't know that's the way my dad had planned it. In all honesty, I think my dad probably should have retired a few years earlier. You could tell he was not happy. My dad was always the outdoor. He was always doing operations, always running the crews. He had his hands in the dirt every day. 2005, he was injured in a horse accident, and that physically disabled him to where he could not work outside anymore. And you could tell he was not happy. He was miserable sitting in that office every day, not where he wanted to be. And I wish for him that I'd been maybe a little more proactive and gotten him out earlier just for his own good. I can't change that now, but when I think about for me, so my grandfather had both knees replaced. My dad's had both knees replaced. My uncle needs his replaced. He needs back surgery. I've had a ruptured disc in my low back. I've had C4 through 7 in my neck fused together. And it's just because we jump in and out of a hole all day long with complete disregard to our bodies. And so since
You sound like a professional skateboarder or something.
Right?
I feel like it some days, man. She and I talk about that. She doesn't want me to have the knee surgeries down the road. And so, we're planning, how do I get myself out of the hole? How do I, and that's why I've got the new guy. I'm trying to train and teach him to maybe replace me. I'm trying to find ways and thinking about different things and processes that we can do to make it easier just on me physically. And if something were to happen to me or to Keith, how do we bounce back from that? How do we adjust to that? I think that's what business owners should be doing. If you're not doing that, man, you're going to really struggle at some point if you've not, said that. You don't have to have a written out plan for sure. We don't, but we kind of have an idea of where we want to go and what that's going to look like. And that'll change. We've been talking for the last 6 weeks of a certain way, and we've already just in our conversations here in Arizona, well, what if we do something maybe a little bit different this way? And man, that's okay. Plans can change, but man, you got to have a plan. You got to know where you're going with it.
You want to go back to school again, right?
I'm not going back to school. Look, that was one of my. I told her that when I dropped out of the PhD. I told her, if this is really important to me, I could do this in my 50s and 60s. It's just education. It's not going anywhere. It's not changing. If it's really important to me, I'll do it then. It's not important. I am not doing that again. I'm not. My education.
I mean, it's
my
been
edu-
4 years, right? I mean, it
Yeah.
seems to be your
Yeah.
pattern.
No, my education now consists of Aqua Magazine and Genesis classes
There
and
you go.
water shapes. Doing those things there. I'm not going back to university again. I'm past. I'll let my kids do that. So, and that's an entirely different world now too. By the way, I mean, it's no longer sitting in classes like we used to. I mean,
Oh no, for sure.
they're doing stuff online, and I mean, even our education in the pool industry is going that way.
Yeah.
So.
I think this is a really important question, and it's kind of a spin-off of what you were just talking about. But what do you think businesses could be doing to prepare themselves for, either a recession or, we're going through a pandemic, which, the pool industry has kind of flourished from it, but it's still weird times.
It is, for sure. Before the pandemic all started, end of last year, I mean, we were kind of looking at the economy. We knew we had an election coming up, and we were kind of expecting some sort of downturn to come. We weren't sure what that was going to look like, but we kind of, at that point, we were kind of starting to, we weren't spending as much, kind of conserving cash in case we needed it, which is, I'll mention, that's been very good that we've done that, because now that the world's changed, we've flourished, but there's part of our industry that's really struggling. I mean, I don't know if you guys have walked into a SEP and tried to buy a pump, but you're not going to get one. You're not going to get lights. You're not going to, I mean, there's things that just because of the pandemic and the process slowing down in manufacturing, it's affecting us all the way at the end. And we were fortunate. We had already started saving some cash for recession because we didn't know what that was going to look like. So, we're doing well, but now, hey, I can't get pumps and heaters. So we brought in pallets of heaters and pumps, and I've got an entire truck of plumbing coming in because PVC pipe has jumped 30% in the last 2 months. And so it's looking at the trends and trying to anticipate what's coming up after that. And I know a lot of folks may have trouble doing that, but I think it's worth, if you can't do it, find somebody that can help you look at trends and see what's gonna happen. Because if the distributor doesn't have your equipment, I mean, you have a pool sitting there for a long time. I mean, they're talking sometimes 6-8 weeks to get some of the equipment in. It's not SEP's fault. I mean, they don't make it; they just provide it to you. It's down.
It's also in such high demand. I mean, even if the
Well,
economy was
Right.
fine, when something goes out of its normal demand,
Right.
that means that things have to be manufactured at a different rate.
Right.
And those things
And
don't happen
well,
overnight.
What really hurt us is that production stopped, but we need production to ramp up because our industry is booming, and production slowed down, and that's really just, man, it's tough right now to get equipment in that way. It's tough to get gunite crews. The supply and demand curve has changed dramatically in most areas. We're fortunate in that we have a long-standing relationship with a lot of our subcontractors. We do enough work, and I'll say this, as a business, we pay our subs on Friday. If they have an invoice in by Thursday at 10 o'clock at night, they get a check on Friday, every Friday.
Dude, that's awesome.
You want to talk about some loyalty? Money talks, and I know, and that's good business.
How much do they appreciate that?
They all do. It's funny. I mean, she complains every Friday morning because she's got an email that came through at 2 o'clock from somebody. and what'll be bad, it's a job we did 3 weeks ago. They could have sent it any of the other weeks, but we still pay them that Friday. No matter, that's our philosophy. We keep those guys happy that way. Give them plenty of notice. We try to. I mean, things change. Weather really affects us a lot. Having our subs loyal to us has helped tremendously with that. We're not having to beg to get things done.
Yeah, I'm sure that goes a long way. I've never heard of anybody doing that, but it must be difficult to go from being paid every Friday to not getting paid every Friday. And it's like, oh, man.
Oh, look, they'll look, if we don't have a job, they'll call and ask, hey, where are we working? I don't even have to send them plans. They have us set on certain days of the week. And as long as they get a plan before they get there, they can adjust to what we've done. And that's because, I mean, I'll be honest with you, there are some weeks. I don't know on Friday which job I'm digging on Monday just because of the weather or the changes homeowners are making. And I have swapped jobs Monday morning. Let's go over here instead and start digging this one. They're ready. These folks can't make up their mind. And yeah, we're going to put a pool in the ground.
It's happening.
It's happening.
Very good. So how can people reach out to Russell Pools? How can they follow you and see what you do?
Well, so we've got a website, russellpools.com. I'll admit the pictures do not get updated as well as they should be. Again, a small business, that's one of those things that kind of gets put on the back burner is keeping up with the website. So we do our best. It does have some of our work on there, and it does have ways to get in touch with us. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook. It's at Russell Pools. Now, I don't do a lot of interaction on Facebook. Personally, I'm not a big fan of it. But since Instagram does cross-post seamlessly to Facebook, I do that. So you can find what we're doing on it as well. I'm just not going to, I may not respond to messages on it as frequently as I do Instagram.
So
slide into the DM.
Yeah. Send Lee a letter in the mail with a stamp.
There you go. I don't know. The way the post office goes now, I don't know when I'll get it. But.
Oh, man. Well, thank you so much for making the trip out here all the way from Louisiana. We really appreciate it. This was such a fun conversation, and we think that this is something that people really enjoy.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you guys having us out. I mean, it's been a blast, and I like to be a part. And that's like I said, I want to be involved with our company just however we can, and this is part of it. So,
all right, thank you.
Thank you. Hey, Pool Chasers, thanks for checking out this episode. Did you know that each episode has its own page on our website? This is where you can find more information about the guest and episode topic, as well as all the resources that we discuss throughout the show. To get to the webpage, click the link below. Also below, you will find links to the sponsors of the show, as well as links to follow us on our social media channels. On our channels, you will find some of our favorite clips and bonus material. Please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Our tag is Pool Chasers. We also have a Facebook group for the Pool Chasers community. Here you will find like-minded professionals all looking to make each other better. One last thing. If the episode has brought you value, please check out our Patreon page to support us. And if you could please rate and review the podcast, we would love to hear what your favorite topics are. Thank you for your time and your ear.
See you out there, Pool Chasers.